Every day, we the people get yanked in previously unimaginable directions. The Constitution, that every predecessor in the Oval Office regarded as sacrosanct, is suddenly seen by this president as a recommendation at best. People sitting in chairs like myself find ourselves every day seemingly reacting to stories where this administration is assaulting a norm, whether it's abandoning established alliances and embracing enemies, attacking our science and medical institutions, and instead promoting conspiratorial nonsense as fact, starting trade wars without a strategy or understanding of basic economics, jeopardizing a global recession, threatening dissent by weaponizing government to threaten broadcast licenses for unfavorable coverage, threatening colleges' accreditation and funding for political payback, threatening law firms' livelihoods if he doesn't like their clients, empowering unelected and even unnamed people to gut our government even though they have no idea what they're cutting, using our government as a glorified personal ATM, pocketing billions by either extorting or rewarding foreign governments and crafting policy contingent on financial self-interests, perverting the rule of law, where people are suddenly getting picked up on American streets without warrants, thrown into unmarked vans, and shipped to foreign prisons, all with the president's blessing. The same president who handed out 1,600 blanket pardons for people who violently attack law enforcement in an attempt to steal an election. There's so much more, but consider we're not even 5 months into a 4-year term. So this morning, I wanted to remind you what a presidency is supposed to look like. Before Trump, whether you shared a president's politics or even if you didn't like the guy, you never doubted that the individual believed that he worked for the American people, that he was humbled by the awesome responsibility of the presidency, and that he aspired to the job not to pocket as much cash as he could, but because he wanted to leave the nation in a better place, while respecting the pillars of democracy, the Constitution, the separation of powers. Those things were givens before Donald J. Trump redecorated the Oval. A president's job description includes, of course, protecting the public. Think about what the consequences will be of his decision to gut weather and scientific services, the FEMA response capabilities, and more, just as we're about to head into a storm season. When a natural disaster struck, I never heard a previous president describe tax dollars directed to recovery as, quote, his money, let alone openly hedging that aid depending on if the impacted state voted for him. A president is supposed to care for the public. Yesterday, Trump's choice to run HHS, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., gutted the entire advisory board at the Centers for Disease Control, even though he pledged during confirmation hearings he would do no such thing. The anti-vax conspiracist is already responsible for fostering an environment where suddenly, for the first time in more than a generation, we have a major measles outbreak, and somehow he, and by extension his boss, see that as good news. A president is supposed to be a sober steward of the economy. Despite campaign promises to the contrary, Trump is endorsing a budget that would add $3 trillion to our national debt. Our national crediting is suddenly teetering. The impacts of his ill-thought and uninformed trade war is about to truly hit our national economy. While all presidents, of course, have their political leanings and core constituencies, all have at least attempted to be uniters-in-chief instead of dividers-in-chief. Not Trump. This weekend, Trump is throwing himself a military parade that will cost we the people at least $45 million in taxpayer money. His previous cabinet talked him out of this, explaining that only dictators sought self-aggrandizement and shows of force. Those guardrails, of course, long gone, and while the irony of a draft dodger regaling himself as a military hero is lost on our commander-in-chief, listen to what he said about the consequences for Americans who chose to exercise their First Amendment rights by voicing their displeasure.
If there's any protester that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
Throughout his term, Trump's naked self-interest screamed hypocrisy. Trump's hate of protest apparently didn't come up in Charlottesville, when as president, white nationalists chanted threats to Jews and minorities and eventually led in fact to murder. In fact, Trump defended them.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
In justifying putting military on the ground in LA, he says it's his respect for law enforcement. I find that very notable, as he justified going around the governor in California calling in thousands of National Guard troops are forced to sit idle because of his concern for the safety of cops. It is interesting because after summoning a mob to Washington under the guise of the big lie of a stolen election, he then aimed that mob at the Capitol, where he told them to, quote, fight like hell. In the ensuing insurrection, hundreds of officers were hospitalized at the hands of his rioters. Not only did Trump never call the DC National Guard when pleaded by his aides, which only he could summon, but despite the 1,600 offenders, including pedophiles, domestic abusers, and other violent criminals, Trump pardoned them all, citing insurrectionists as the victims, even calling their actions those of love. A president swears an oath to protect our nation from enemies both foreign and domestic. But what if the enemy of democracy is the president himself? Does our president really love America? Does he embrace the brilliance of our founders in the idea of checks and balances they established for representative government? The freedoms of our founders they gifted us after they fled oppression, best punctuated by our encouraged right to speak up in dissent if you feel that your government is not representative of you, a government for the people, by the people. If we can't do that, we lose our way. Does he embrace that we are a nation of immigrants seeking the American dream just like his forefathers before him? The riots started in LA not because violent offenders were rightfully deported, good for them. It's when ICE started rounding up people at Home Depot or immigration offices or the school pickup line. Listen, we don't have to agree on everything. In fact, in a good democracy like we used to be, we don't. But we should not have to wonder if our president believes in the rule of law. We should not have to worry that the government aid will not be based on if a state is red or blue, but if they need help. We shouldn't have to wonder if policy is based on how much it will self-enrich a president. We shouldn't have to worry that we will go backwards as science and medicine will take a backseat to conspiracy. We shouldn't have to worry if a president will follow a court ruling. We shouldn't have to worry if a president will turn our troops against us. These are not big asks, my friends. These are not questions, in fact, I can remember wondering about any other president in my lifetime. But not only should we be asking them today, my fear is we're only witnessing the opening act of a play that will grow far more chilling as we inch to 2028. We'll deserve a president for the people, not a president for himself.